Hey guys, I'm going to film from a bit of a different angle today because this video is going to be a bit of a insight into how I manage the different decks that I use from my day-to-day life. So this is going to be a day in the life of a deck of cards for Scotti P, the Mid-Strength Magician, in a nutshell. So typically there's 4 tiers of decks that I use. The first tier is the performance deck. So this is the deck that I would use to do actual performances to people. It fans nice, it handles nice, they're clean cards. If I was doing something, I mean this is performances for video. If I was doing like a gig at a family barbecue or something like that, I would use a fresh deck and just crack that open and break it in a bit before heading to the party or the gig or whatever it is. But typically for performing to a camera, this is the deck that I would use. Now, when this deck gets a bit worn, or if I do introduce a new deck for another reason, this new deck would get introduced and the previous one would move down to the next tier, which is duplicates. The reason I use the next tier down as duplicates is because they still handle well and they look and feel as much like the performance deck as possible. So if you're throwing one of these cards in as a duplicate, it won't stand out and it looks and matches the performance deck. Now, when the cards get too clumpy, they don't fan well, they start to get a bit tattered, and you don't want to use them for video or for performance, they move down to the next tier, which is practice deck. And this is the stuff that I would, I'd practice maybe different types of double lifts. I might want to try this little in-jog double lift where the card changes, or I might be trying to practice a pass or something, or maybe even some stack work. So this is the deck that I would muck about with and try and come up with new ideas with, and that is the practice deck. Now the big question is, what happens to the practice deck when it gets pushed down by introducing a new deck? The answer is this deck right here, the Garbo deck. This is the deck. I'm saying deck a lot. This is the deck where I would have cards peeled for potential double backers. I might be doing a torn and restored. I could be practicing Mercury folds, things like that. I'm not going to worry about destroying these cards because that's what they're there for. Another thing to note is, and this Garbo deck is from October 2019, I actually date the inside flaps of my cards. That's just so I know how well they're lasting, or if I introduce a new set of routines, it may make the deck deteriorate faster than it normally would, so it just helps me keep track of which one's which as well, if they get mixed up. So for each of these tiers, I also have red versions. So I've got essentially 4 tiers and in red and blue, so I've got 8 decks on the go at any given time. Now the other thing you may be wondering is, where do all the old decks go? Because if I've got 4 tiers of decks that I'm using and the last one is Garbo, where do all the old decks go? The answer lies behind this poster. It's actually a secret little door that it opens up to old decks of cards. This isn't all the old decks that I've gone through, but it is a lot of them, and they go right back to 2018. December 2018 was when I started writing dates on them. So that's where all the old ones end up. And these ones at the top here, they're not all old. Some of them are actually routines that I've just built into decks, so I can just pull out that deck and it's ready to go. I don't use these anymore. This is something I used to do. Traveller was a trick that I came up with and used to perform a bit. Red versus blue, which I've performed on my channel. This is the deck that I actually used for that video, and I've got a couple of Sice Stebbins stacks. I believe I've got a red version as well. There's a red Sice Stebbins stack ready to go. I've got a stack ready to do Chris Ramsey's Voodoo. So if you know the trick, you know that needs to be prepared in advance. Juicy Fruit or Juicier Fruit by Sankey. It's got the Juicy Fruit gimmick all ready to go. And that is essentially a little look into my cards. Of course, I'm going to try and move the camera, so try not to get nauseous. Then I've got my actual cards. The Theory 11 decks that I've put on display and will use occasionally, but for the most part will just stay up here. And thanks to Jesse Champlin, the V4s. So the Magic Fluel Cup, the liquid Fluel Cup from the Magic guys will always be the center of attention to my shelf. And stay tuned for a routine that I'm building based on 7-Eleven. Also given to me by Jesse Champlin. That's it, guys. I tried to keep it a bit short, but obviously there was a bit to get through, so until next time, I'm Scotty P, the Mid-Strength Magician, and I bloody love magic.